Hey ladies, I'm just about to head back in for a coaching call with one of my clients, V, and we're going to talk about a really important piece for her, which is how do I start to feel excited about my life again? And I think this is a really huge topic if you are in midlife and you are just wanting to reinvent, but you don't know how. So I'm really excited for you to go behind the scenes and see what we uncover in today's call.
Hey, Marni, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm hanging in there,
Yeah,
sur
that's good.
surviving. Basically, I'm just really sort of like living a life that is extremely focused on work
Yep.
and becoming more technical and just kind of really heads down and trying to turn around the situation and also trying to be a good mom. And so it's so funny, like all these things I think about doing, like playing tennis and having a balanced life. For now, I'm not doing them. One of the things I was curious about, and I've thought I was thinking a lot about, is around. So I've read The Secret and the Law of Attraction, and I think that stuff is really, I really do believe in it for manifesting,
Yeah.
And you've said to me before you're a good manifester, which is true. I've had success there before. I guess the question is, how do you use it when you're dealing with really negative forces around you and like a lot of toxicity that isn't necessarily fair? What do you do?
You have to set boundaries as best you can.
Yeah,
You have to really be so certain that you have a shield so you can't absorb it.
yeah,
You're
that
not
we,
taking it personally. And then you quadruple down on, on really adopting a belief of radical faith, of taking the lessons every single day of what it is that is getting you triggered, so that all you do is work on the things that you can control, which is how do I react less to other people, right? And understand that and start thinking about, how do I plan my exit, or what am I going to do about this, so that you can, get excited and have hope and like figure out a next plan, so that you can put your attention and thoughts on what you want, as much as like, struggling. And I think then the last thing is you have to decide internally, like, what's enough,
yeah,
and align that to your core motivation. Because if your core motivation is, I don't really care how much this sucks, and I'm willing to have no life for the next 10 years until my daughter grows up and is gone, or until she's done with college, then you hold on to that. But like, you have to kind of find some honesty with yourself.
really sort of focusing on what you control and the lessons, right? I think that's important.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are all the kind of wisdom seeking questions that you can ask yourself around moving through these things, right? Because all those, even when someone is toxic and it's challenging, if we're choosing to stay, then there's learning from it.
And then that question around like motivation, and your motivation. Can we talk through that a little bit? That'd be really helpful for me today.
Yeah. So if you have a really clear understanding of what you care about, like what you love, what you care about, what you enjoy, all those, the what of what makes Victoria Victorian, like what that is, and then how you carry it out best, like what are the circumstances that allow you to be at your optimal highest self. And then when you are highly engaged in something, part of that high engagement or interest or flow or joy is from it being aligned with some value of yours that's a core value, right? And so I was talking in a group about, like the sun hit the one thing where hits that one spot. And someone was saying, like, if I can find a why, a core motivation that, is so deeply resonant with who I am, then I can do anything. I can make anything work. And then another woman in the group was like, oh yeah, I have these health issues. And I was thinking like my medical appointments and taking care of myself were just so low energy, like I hate them. Like, and then she was like, wait, but like if I really connect it to my core value, which is like life and love, right? And being there for my grandchildren, then that changes my entire energy of how I'm doing this thing.
And how are people doing that? Like getting to that, that core motivation, what they love, what they care about.
Well, so I don't want to give you a bunch of stuff to do because you probably won't do it.
It's okay. I mean, I have some time, like when I drive, to listen.
Yeah. Well, one of the actual strategy involved in it is tracking your time for a week or so about every task that you're doing and ranking it from like 0 to 5.
Yeah.
Like 5 is like, I'm the flow and engaged, and
that's cool.
Like, this sucks, right?
Yes.
Energy. And then what you do is you look at the categories and you go, wow, when I was in flow engagement, what I was doing was in nature, or problem solving, or connecting the dots, or being involved in someone else's mission, or like whatever it is, right? It might, stuff with your daughter, like, whatever that is. And you go across all categories, and then you look at like, oh, well, how was I doing it? Oh, I was doing it in a small group, or I was doing one-on-one, or I was doing it with a lot of people, or it was a collaboration. I didn't have to do it on my own. Like you kind of deduce those things. And then
that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then you look at, okay, well, what were the core motivations and all those things? Like, and my favorite example of how this is so powerful is that when I was doing it a while back, I just did it again recently, but when I did it a while back, I was like cooking, and I was like, I love cooking. It's a 5. And then I was like, oh, look, I had all these cookings that were like a 1. And I realized it was around my core motivation. The 5 was like, and the how was like, oh, everyone's in the kitchen. Everyone's offering to help. Like, we're all talking. It's like community. I'm entertaining. The ones were like me in the kitchen making food while everyone else was watching a football game in the living room. Right? And I was like, oh, so what's my core motivation is connection. Like, it's entertaining, it's collaboration, it's, all those sorts of things. And once you know what your core motivation is, and I was going to show you this document.
And you do this during work, like for your work activities, different work activities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so it's really powerful, because then you can have this idea of, it's really what is your essence. So I'll just show you.
Cool.
Yeah, I recently did it. I've done it a couple years ago, and then I've been teaching it, obviously. But so it's just simple. I just made a list, like what, my what. It got really a lot bigger since I expanded my life. Connection, reflection, having something I'm working towards, my why, teaching something that's working for me, inventing something new, right? Like, now I know, like, this is what blows my hair back, right?
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful thing. And if you can connect your core motivation to what you're doing or not, that will make a big difference.
The other thing I wrote down is, it was Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. You're Jewish too, right? So it's a good time to reflect.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm about ready to go have a coaching call with my client V. Just thought I'd show you this beautiful rural life that blows my hair back. And the other piece that she has on her agenda today is she wants me to tell her the hard truth about what I see in her, that why she's feeling stuck, that she just thinks that she can't see, and no one has the courage to tell her the truth about how she comes off and how people experience her. So check out this. We'll see
it goes.
I wrote out a couple of sort of intention things I wanted to let go of, things for the next year, but we can talk about that, or I can also just ask you sort of big picture. We've spent time together in the group and now one-on-one. And so just being frank with me, because I'm good with direct feedback in terms of anything that stands out for you. Like when I went to your retreat, the big thing that we talked about was acceptance as like the thing for me to work on. And so anything else that comes up like that for me as I think about the next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think for you that the biggest thing is that you put blinders on yourself that you don't realize aren't the truth. They're your truth in the moment, but they're not the truth.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
we haven't talked about that.
Yeah, I think that like when you get in that place where you like with your jerky boss, or like things are there's a struggle, right?
Yeah.
I think the default for you is still sometimes, why is this happening to me? And I don't have any choices, and
That's true.
There's no way out.
That's true.
Yeah. And so that is not the truth. That is your truth. You're choosing it. And I think that you forget to take responsibility for the fact that you are choosing it. If you choose that, like you just said, like, I'm not playing tennis, I'm not doing whatever, I'm just focusing on my daughter and I'm going to work, right? Just owning that you've chosen that rather than being like, oh, this is so bad, like I don't get to play tennis like other people, right? Like you're choosing it, or you're choosing to listen to what your boss says and make it the truth, or you're choosing to try and fit in this place where it's very challenging. So I think you have a way more possibilities than you choose to see sometimes. It's like I was just telling someone like if you ever watch a Marvel movie or any science fiction or read a book or whatever, like you're in that world and you believe that world, and like you just believe it because it's written so well that you believe it's real. Yeah. And so I think of our lives like that. Like we have rules, we have like story, and we're like, this is what it is, but really there's like another universe. Like how you see the world is completely different from other people, and you have a choice. So I would say see possibility is the headline.
I think that's really powerful. That's a really powerful insight.
And when you like at the retreat, once you like slow down, and you created time to really reflect and get to the deep pieces, like there's so much there, like there's so much there that that you can change.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like at the retreat, for example, like you were sort of forced like to like be in a container of reflection and deal with shit, right? And be asked hard questions and not run away into all the other stuff that you do have in your life, right? And I think when you take the time to really do that, you're very coachable, you're very smart, like you're very you have a lot of capacity and capability. And so I think also that scurry energy we worked on at the very beginning can sometimes take you out of like dealing with what's really going on, because you're just trying to problem solve.
Mine is more practical, like yours is more thoughtful. But like one of the things I thought about, and I have had a couple of people point this out to me too, is like people that know me really well, is I went to the beach for Rosh Hashanah, and there was like this ceremony at the beach. Did I tell you about this? I can't remember.
Like a Tashlik thing?
Yeah. And like I walked into the beach with friends of mine that were there, and I like smiled and I was so happy. And I reflected on that quickly last night, because there has been none of that in my life. And like other friends recently, the last 6 months, and other friends that know me well were like, wow, you need to laugh again. Like we never hear you laugh. It's like very serious and stressful all the time.
next to what I'd given you that feedback, right? Is that if you're in a place of like where you don't see possibility ever, right?
Yeah.
And you feel empowered or like, oh, I'm like I have to do this, like, right? Well, there's no joy, there's no light, there's no humor. You're not playing.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can you work hard and also be you? Like, find joy. I did a video the other day, and a bunch of people responded to this piece that I said, because it was about being busy, actually. And I was like, you don't have a time management problem, you have a mindset problem, right? But the bottom line is, I said in the video, is like, you really have to think about what you want your life to be, because at the end, do you want your tombstone to say, Victoria, she was really busy. That's what happens if we don't, take a stand. And that's why I said, like, how do you manifest? Like, you have to decide, like, there's an end to this, and I'm going to plan that end, and I'm going to do something else, or I'm going to just do this, but I'm also going to live my freaking life.
For people that you've coached where they've gone through sort of a potential change like this, right? It's starting with that exercise,
yes,
that one that you just talked about, that flow exercise?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And it's funny, I have a client who worked for corporate, and then she did that, and then she ended up being a consultant, and then she got, wooed back by one of her clients. And she's in it, and she's like, this sucks. Like, I didn't leave here to do my own thing, to come back and be seduced by all this money or opportunity, and then, never have any joy in my life, right? And so she was like, all those things that I left to create, to be in flow and all that stuff, I'm like back in this situation. So, but what she decided was that she could make different choices about how she shows up for that job.
Okay, say more. Like what?
Right. So she was like, well, we had a big conversation. It happens to be with Dell. And she, through the course of the conversation, she said, in the end, Michael Dell doesn't give a shit about me. Like, I'm like living my life for him and his company, working on the weekends, not doing this, making sure I take on everybody's tasks, because other people on my team don't perform, but I also like care about what the team looks like and what other people think. And she just realized she was enabling like the whole system. So she stopped, and she was like, talked to all the people that work for her, and she was like, I've been saving your ass, because the story she had was like, well, you have a family and you're younger and you're, and so she just stopped. She closed her laptop on the weekend. She decided to be a better leader, manage her people better. And then everything sort of changed, on her team. But the bottom line is, she turned 60, and she was like, I've been saying my life is going to change, like when this launch is over, and I'm 60, and this is not how I wanted to be at 60. And so I have to change it. So she decided that her core motivation to create income so she could retire in like 18 months for now is keeping her focused on what I said, like planning her exit, setting new boundaries, remembering, putting it into perspective, and that's helping her like have joy again. So I think it's remembering those things and saying, like, taking responsibility for the parts that you can is essential.
Okay, I'm going to read to you what I wrote out.
I love that. That's
I know it's a long list, and it might not be totally practical, but let's see what I wrote out. I wrote. Great. Okay, I have a picture of it. Okay, so I actually only wrote 7 items. Okay, one is to feel celebrated, respected, and supported in my work.
Okay.
To love my work, and while having balance in order to live the rest of my life. That's number 1. Number 2, to be a fun and a good mommy and a focused mommy to Sophia. Okay. Number 3, to meet my life partner. Number 4, to be in good physical and mental shape to feel great, which includes meditation for better sleep and getting in shape physically. Like I put to be back in this dress that I wore last year that I couldn't fit into this year. Not because I've gained weight, but just because I'm out of shape. Then I put to laugh and feel joy, like the walk on the beach,
Yep.
to dance, to play tennis. One thing that really, this is why I wrote this. I'd be curious to get your take on this. It kind of has to do with the law of attraction and karma. I wrote to practice acceptance of others who are different and of me. And the reason, let me tell you why I wrote that.
Yeah.
During Yom Kippur, one of the things that hit me, and it's a hard realization, is that I was super, super judgmental of my ex and especially of his 2 older kids. I didn't think, they were living their right, they weren't doing chores and they weren't working and they were slacking off and they were putting him in tough financial positions, on and on and on. I mean, I can't even, as were my parents, and they were, egging me on. So I was, instead of being accepting, I was really, really judgmental. And I was actually thinking about that. And I wonder if you believe in karma, I wonder if that's why I'm having like such a tough year of it. But that's why I write that.
I don't believe in karma per se. Okay. I believe like that life happens and then we have to learn the lesson over and over and over and over again until we like actually learn the lesson.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like, I think it's interesting, right? Like if you were judgmental.
So judgmental.
And now you're being judged.
Yeah.
Right? Like the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is like, Victoria, class is starting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay.
Right?
So how do I let the universe know I got it? I got the lesson really clearly this time. I got it.
Yeah. So I think one thing is like, so looking at like, how can I have more self-acceptance?
Yeah.
Surrender. How can you not take like the judgment personally? Like that you're being judged, right? Like if you understand now that judgment, it can be a flaw, and your boss and all these people who you're working with are judging you, it's their own flaw, right? So if you could have compassion and understand that and be resilient and resourceful and learn to be who you really are, then you will not be as reactive around someone judging you, and you will judge less. So if you switch your judgment of him from being a jerk to one of compassion or wanting to create more understanding, he can't really bully you anymore. Just notice other places in your life where you're judging and be like, what's another way? Like someone was saying, and a client I just coached with earlier, she was like, I keep saying to myself, what would the highest version of me do or think or say in this situation? What would a high value woman do, think, or say in this situation?
So that's why I wrote that one out, because it really hit me. And then actually I wrote out to expand my network of friends and community around me, to have a really, especially if I don't move,
right,
to have that, because that definitely changed after the separation. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
Well, I think some of the goals that are very aspirational, like it's my philosophy on all that is to make them more like a mastery orientation, where it's about you showing up to be more of you.
Okay.
This like, because then the success is measured by the outcome rather than by the trying.
Can you say more? What do you mean?
Well, so like if
I know we talked about that, the mastery orientation, but so that it would be.
So like one of them you said, like, I want to work out more, basically, get better in shape, right?
Yeah.
So that's just like a goal. I mean, it's great, but like, I think if you reframe it and you're like, figure out what's causing me to not go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right? Like try 5 different kinds of workouts and see which one I really enjoy. Take a class about, midlife exercise. I'm literally making shit up. But you know what I mean? Those are like the being of the goal rather than just like something of like, I'm going to get here. Like that's just like,
got it.
And I don't mean to be like cavalier, like, oh, it's stupid, but I'm like, everyone makes that goal. And like, basically it's really hard to execute. So set yourself up to win by making
That's great.
Things that you would actually do. So if you go through all those goals and you try and create 1 or 2 versions of the way I just showed you for each one, that'll probably be more like doable. Or you'll say, no, my choice this next 6 months is I'm having my head down at work. So I'm not even this isn't real. I don't actually, I'd love to wear the dress, but like, honestly, I'm not going to set myself up for a lie. I don't have time for this. So I'll put it on for 2024 and I'll reevaluate. So it's like that radical honesty,
Thank you.
You're welcome.